What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the E! Network, as today we're talking Season 6, Episode 6 of Total Bellas entitled Family Ties. So, almost every episode of the show so far, throughout the last 6 seasons, has featured, like any other, reality TV show like this, a main story, a sub-story, sometimes even a third story. This one was all about Kathy Bella, Mama Bella, a.k.a. Mama Bella, the mother of Brie and Nikki Bella, and her brain surgery. A very serious story on today's episode, which I thought, or this week's episode, this aired 3 days ago on the network, and I'm just getting to it really late this week. The babies are being born soon. I believe at least Nikki's baby is being born on the next episode here of the show. I don't know about Brie's. They didn't show any footage of Brie's birth in the preview for next week's episode, so I'm not sure if Brie's will be covered in that one or just be saved for the next one. I'm not sure, but that's coming up next week. This one was all about Kathy Bella, and I thought that was really, really cool that they devoted the entire episode to such a serious topic, to such a serious subject, because there was a decent chance, not of her dying, but of there being some serious ramifications coming from what she had. Now, it's been believed for a while now, up to this point in the show, that she had Bell's palsy. Come to find out on this show, that's not indeed what the case was. It was something else entirely different. So I'm glad we didn't have that as the main story, and then some other bickering between Nikki and Brie as the sub-story, or something else going on with Brian and Artem as another story. This was all about Kathy Bella, which I thought was awesome. So, the very beginning of the episode, before we find out about any of that stuff, Nikki and Artem are actually on their way to Los Angeles, because we found out at the end of last week's episode, no, this was the first episode in a few weeks. I completely forgot about that. So this was the first new episode since well before Christmas, since 3 weeks ago. And we left off with Nikki and Artem having to leave for Los Angeles, because that's where she has to have her baby, due to the whole insurance issue, where they can only be covered not where they're living, but where their doctor is. I don't remember exactly what the problem was. So Nikki actually forgets Mateo's clothes, that's the name of their baby when he's going to be born, his hospital clothes in the room back at their house. And then she tells Brie about it, and Brie's like, oh, maybe I can use this other stuff until they're back, because I guess they're going to be gone for 3 months, which is a really long time. Or at least they were supposed to, which I'll get back to in a moment. Meanwhile, Brie is she FaceTimes Nikki. She has to ask her a question about something, and then Artem answers the call for Nikki while Nikki is on the toilet on the side of the road. A visual I did not need to see, but we got it anyway here on this episode. So that's when things kind of go south. So Nikki and Artem are still in the car when they get another call from Brie. They talk a lot on the phone in the first 5 minutes of this episode. This one is actually necessary, this phone call, where Nikki gets a phone call from Nikki about how Kathy, their mom, is not doing well. Again, for the last, not even in this season, but it was discussed at the end of Season 5 as well, that they thought that she had Bell's palsy, which is why her face, a lot like what Jim Ross has had, his bouts of Bell palsy over the years. Very similar to that, where he has facial paralysis and things like that. Kathy was no different. So they told her that she'd be fine. She was worried it was going to get worse because it wasn't getting better at that point. So we come to find out on this episode that it wasn't Bell's palsy and that she needs an emergency MRI. And Brie's really sad because she's been through a lot lately. Kathy has been. That's when Nikki contemplates and then ends up deciding to just go home. They turn around, they just go home, they figure out the whole insurance thing, and they figure out, listen, the stuff with Kathy, the stuff with our mom is way more important than having to deal with all these insurance issues and whatnot. We'll just go home and be there for her, which was the right decision. So they also find out soon after that she needs brain surgery, and that instead of Bell's palsy, that she actually has lesions on her brain that has caused her mouth to kind of, her entire one side of her face to just be paralyzed and whatever, and she's having trouble speaking and, even looking through one of her eyes. So it's pretty crazy stuff, very serious stuff here. And that's when Kathy gives them an update over FaceTime about how if she does this surgery, that she could have a stroke during the surgery if they strike a certain vein, and she could die. Not extremely likely, but they obviously need to let her know the chances of, of whatever might happen with the surgery, assuming she goes through with it, which she does. But they need to know ahead of time. They need to tell her ahead of time, hey, this is what could happen if something goes wrong. We're hoping it doesn't, but just in the very small chance that it does, this is what could happen. So she even contemplates waiting to do the surgery until after the twins have their babies, which at this point I'm not sure how far off that would be. I know Nikki is basically, her water breaks, spoiler alert, at the end of this episode. But that's in like late July. I'm not sure when this whole Kathy thing happens. This could be in May. This could be in June. It could even be early July. But the fact of the matter is that she waits any longer, it could get worse. So she's also thinking, oh, if I do this surgery now and I die, like I'll never get to see my grandkids, which is a really morbid thought, but that's what she's thinking in this moment. And they even tell her, listen, don't think like that. Let's go on the chance here that everything's going to be all right, which it was, thankfully. And just do your surgery right now, because it's better to just take care of it now as opposed to waiting and having it potentially get worse. So again, Nikki goes home. She and Artem turn around, go back home. Everyone's together the day before the surgery. And when I say everyone, I mean, it's so weird now that I think about it. JJ's not there. He's not involved in any of this. And I'm sure obviously he talked to her and saw her and whatever, but JJ is not involved in this whatsoever. It's only Bree, Nikki, Kathy, and her husband, John Laurinaitis, who they got married, I think, way back when in season 1 or something like that. So Nikki decides to have the baby in Arizona, despite the insurance stuff. She makes that clear here. And John Laurinaitis brings up how this whole situation has really put everything in perspective for him. And Kathy gets really emotional. Johnny gets emotional too, but more so Kathy, about how she really wants the twins to take care of him if anything were to happen to her. And again, to think that way is very morbid, but that's really all you can think of if you're in her situation, so she can't be blamed for that. So she gets really emotional about Johnny and the twins and everyone else. It's just a really sad scene. So thankfully Daniel Bryan comes home, Bryan Danielson, Bree's husband, comes home a few weeks early for paternity leave, and thankfully is there for Kathy's big surgery. Not there while the surgery is happening, but is there to talk to her and console her, a few days before she goes in for the surgery. And then Bree and Nikki talk about breast pumps for some reason and trying it on Artem just for him to feel the pain that they have to go through and doing that stuff, which, whatever. Kind of an unnecessary scene, but it is what it is. Just kind of, indicating that the births of both of their babies is coming up pretty soon. So they go through the surgery. Johnny is there for it. He has to wait on the outside, obviously, just due to the current circumstances in the world of the pandemic and whatnot. This was only a couple months into the pandemic, in July. Like, we're talking now in January. This happened back in July, so it was even worse back. I mean, it's actually pretty bad now, but you know what I mean. The surgery takes a lot longer than they thought it would, and they all get really nervous, and Bree and Nikki are constantly texting Johnny, do you have an update? Do you have an update? No update yet. In the meantime, Bryan and Artem get empathy bellies, which come with a pair of boobs and a fucking pregnancy stomach, to show that they know what Bree and Nikki are going through. So I guess that's kind of the sub-story. They don't really... Again, I guess the breast pump thing isn't really all that... It's really all not that unnecessary anyway, considering that's what the sub-story, I guess, of this episode is supposed to be. But it was all done in good fun, so I don't really have a problem with it. And then Artem's water breaks, and they have to kind of simulate that whole thing, whatever. So again, back to the Kathy stuff. The twins can't stop praying for Kathy. Johnny eventually gives an update many hours later, and he says that the doctor told him that it took longer than expected because they really had to go through like 5 or 6 times through the brain to make sure all the mass was out. And it is, which is cool. She is conscious now. She is doing well. But the doctor did tell him, and obviously they didn't tell Kathy this, but the doctor did say, I'm very glad you did it now because it could have been fatal down the road, which is really scary to hear. So Kathy eventually calls Bree, and Bree and Nikki talk to Kathy over the phone. They're very relieved to hear her voice because I guess she calls them every day, and this is the first stretch of time where she hasn't called them due to her surgery, so she's very relieved, Bree is, to hear Kathy's voice. And then they go visit her at her house, and she's doing a lot better, and there's still the facial paralysis there, but her speech is better than it was previously, which is good. That's when Bree starts to wonder what her birth story is going to be like, and then this is just random. I mean, she brings up how she wants to move back to Napa Valley with Nikki, and Nikki's, along for the ride here. They want to move to Napa Valley together and get houses, right next to each other, a lot like what they have currently, just in a different location. So they're in Arizona currently. They want to go to Napa Valley, California, I believe is where it is, before Bryan gets back on the road. And she said that she wants to start living and doing what she really wants to do. And Brian brings up how they've moved 8 times since they've been together. I mean, that's unbelievable. Moving 8 times in the span of, what, a decade? I've moved my fair share too, but not because it was my choice. That's unbelievable. So Brian's like, he doesn't know when it's going to be enough, because he recognizes the cycle here where Bree is like, oh, I'm all gung-ho about moving, and then she's happy at first, and then she's not. She gets unsatisfied, and she thinks moving will change her mood, that moving will change everything, and then it doesn't, and then it's a recurring cycle, and Brian realizes that. But Nikki and Bree find 2 homes together in Napa Valley. They were already home searching, I guess. This is a new thing. This is the first I've heard of this. And Bree says that it's serious, so it looks like they're going to go through with it. And then at the very end of the episode, Bree, we find out, is 3 days past her due date. And then in the meanwhile, while they're at the doctor's for a checkup to kind of see how everything is going, Nikki's water breaks. And that was when Bree stopped filming by accident, but her water broke in between filming. So then that's when we kind of lead into the next episode of Nikki's baby being born, and I'm assuming that's what that whole episode is going to be about. They're going to save the Bree pregnancy for the episode after that, because it didn't look like they were going to get into the Bree stuff with next week's episode, and they might. I mean, they did show Bree in the teaser, but it seems like it's mostly about Nikki. But this was a very good episode there, very, very serious stuff, which was a nice, refreshing change of pace for the show, because usually it's like bickering and the usual, sister stuff between Bree and Nikki, but this was really, really cool stuff. Season 6, Episode 6 of Total Bellas, entitled Family Ties, available on the E! Network. I will be back next Friday or Sunday, I'm not sure exactly which, for my review of Season 6, Episode 7 of Total Bellas, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe for more daily content, including hitting that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. And check out all my other Total Bellas reviews right here on the channel in the description box down below. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.